Hello, this is Anka Corbin with Globig. I am here in London with Melissa and Keely from Fitz Law. Thank you so much for joining me today. Tell me a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll also talk about how to come to London, start up a company, or bring your business here, and just the challenges and the opportunities.
I'm Melissa. I'm a corporate tax partner with Fitz Law. I trained with one of the big accounting firms and spent some time in the States working with them, and also some time on secondment to UK government, helping companies come and set up here in the UK. So it's been a natural transition to carry on working in the same field for many years.
Fantastic.
So I'm Keely. I'm a director of our financial outsourcing team at Fitz Law. So I help companies in terms of bank accounts and advising them on best practice with their accounting systems and what they need to do from an accounting perspective here in the UK.
Awesome. Yeah, so Fitz Law is really focused, is a chartered accountancy, and in the US we call those CPA firms.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Now, when a company is considering coming to the UK, let's talk about why the UK, why London, how is it to set up here? Is it an easy or a difficult transition, and why do so many companies actually do that?
Yeah, they do. So the majority of our clients are typical North American tech companies making their first steps overseas, and the UK is a friendly business environment. It's quite similar to the US environment in many ways, so it makes them feel comfortable, and obviously we've got that language advantage of companies coming here. What surprises a lot of companies is how quickly you can set up here. So some of our advice is around that process. You can have a company tomorrow if you have all the right information, but we also try and advise on when's the right time to set up. You may be doing business, what we call with the UK, rather than in the UK, so there may be an opportunity to carry on doing business with clients and customers here, and you don't actually need to go to the expense of setting up here. But hopefully there will come a point where you do want an employee here, you've got a big contract here, there's a good time to look at setting up in the UK, and we can help you do that pretty quickly when the time is right.
Are there different types of setups? Does it depend on the type of company they already are structured in the US, or does it only depend on what you want to structure and set up here in the UK?
No, I mean, we would tend to set up like a limited company here in the UK. For tax purposes, that's really the only option we have. I know other countries have different options available to them. That is a route that we would go down. And as Melissa said, that is really quick. Within 24 hours, we can have a company set up, assuming the company name that you want is available, then that's no problem at all. That's the easy part, setting up the shell company. After that, there's a few more hurdles to kind of get over, but that really is getting that company up and running, incorporated is quite an easy step to take.
Excellent. Now, let's talk about some of those hurdles that you had mentioned. What are some of the surprising things? What are the things that take a little bit more time or just are a little tougher to set up?
From my perspective, it's always the bank accounts. Clients always underestimate how long that will take. It's constantly changing. The regulatory requirements, the paperwork, the know your client, money laundering requirements, and identification of the ultimate shareholders of those companies. It varies between the banks in terms of the requirements and the paperwork. Some banks insist upon meeting a representative here in the UK, whereas other banks don't. We're quite familiar with who's good to go with and who isn't. And as I say, they have different requirements. If you're in tech, and Silicon Valley are a really good option, Silicon Valley Bank are a really good option to go with. One of the first things you should always do really for opening a bank account is try and leverage off of that relationship that you have in the US. So if you're with SVB there, then SVB in the UK is obviously going to be a natural step for you. And part of that is it just makes that account opening process so much easier, really, as they have lots of information they can share. Others, one thing I would say is you really need to be aware that it's not a quick process at all.
So what do you think? Like, what does a longer process look like? Are we talking weeks or months or?
Months, I would say.
Okay.
I would say 1 month is good, but be prepared for around about 2 months. It really depends on how quick you can kind of get everything in a row, get all your paperwork filled out. And as I say, some banks insist upon meeting a representative here in the UK. So it really does vary. One of the good things that we have here at Fitz Law is we have a quick option for our clients. So if you're taking services with us, we can offer something called a client trust account, and we can have that open within 24 hours. So that's
Is that something then that's specific to your clients and that's going through you as a company, or?
It is, yeah. So you have to be a client of Fitzgerald and Law. Typically, you don't have to take all of the services. You may just be setting up a payroll, and that typically tends to be the main reason why people need that account. And we need to carry out our own checks, but as I say, it's less stringent than the bank requirements and much quicker.
And a lot of our clients like to use that as perhaps a stopgap. So if they've got to make payments quickly, or they've got to receive, and on a good day, they've got some income coming in and they want to put it into a UK bank account, we can use our facility to help them get through that while they're waiting for their own account to be opened.
Would you recommend that companies plan much farther in advance given that, or is it, I mean, I imagine you're not going to always be able to do that, but is it something that you can prepare for in advance, or do you actually have to be here and then it really doesn't matter, it's going to take a while no matter what?
It helps to be prepared, obviously, and there are some things you can do, but I think the only real preparation you can do is have that anticipation that the bank account will take a little bit longer than you would hoped, and perhaps plan some interim measures, which could be our client account, or it could just be not having to make any payments in those first few weeks of setting up in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, I think hand in hand with that also is perhaps credit card facilities, and that wouldn't be available with a client trust account. And again, it varies between the banks. We tend to call them corporate accounts. Sure. That's a bank account which is legally owned by a company. Some banks require you to put funds on deposit for a credit card. And that's purely because you're new to the UK, you don't have any credit history. Whereas others, they may be able to leverage off of that parent company relationship, like I said, with Silicon Valley Bank. So there's different quirks with different banks, but I would say the first stop would be, let's try and go off with that parent company relationship.
One of the things I know that, to really develop customers, it's always best to also have a UK phone number, and that would require an office. And is there some sort of a delay in that process as well?
Not necessarily. You can set up pretty quickly in terms of a corporate entity. If you are looking for just a UK telephone number, there are facilities to do that here, to provide a UK office address. A lot of our clients will use our office address as a central London location, but actually perhaps have sales individuals working from home anywhere across the country.
Right.
And from our point of view, it makes no difference where you are in the country. So you can have an employee in Cornwall and one in Scotland and someone else in Manchester working from home, but have a registered office somewhere else, because that's what suits your operation, to have that registered address and to have an attractive address for businesses. But actually it really makes no difference where you are in the UK, to have that facility. From our point of view, from a corporate, there may well be for proximity to customers or to potential customers, that may be more important than your registered address.
All right, so it's easy to set up a business, much harder to set up a bank account. Are there any other tips and things like that where companies are surprised at how different it is, the process?
I think just looping back to the bank account, I hate to keep banging on about it, but it is really a big thing. If you're planning on sending people over on a tier 2 visa, you have to have a bank account of your own. The visa application won't be signed off without it. So that's something that you need to get.
And so that's, you can't, so company first, bank account, and then you can get visas, because you can't do it without those other pieces.
Possibly, though actually I would always say take advice about your visa position before you set up the account, because there are different types of visa, and some of them either require you not to have a company, or more specifically not to have a trading company in the UK before you do that. So that may just be taking time to plan in advance and know exactly what you're trying to achieve before you step in and set up that very quick company in the UK.
Because I imagine you can't undo that, or at least not easily.
It complicates it, yeah. So if we have that planning time, that's the order that we'd probably do it. Look at the visa situation. Do you need to bring someone over? Look at the best structure, which is likely to be a limited company, as Keely said, and then try and get the company set up so that we can get that bank account process underway as soon as possible.
Now, once someone is ready for employees, let's talk a little bit about some of those challenges, or at least awareness of employment law and things that that are just going to be completely different from what they're used to.
So the UK is a nice sort of halfway house between US employment law and other European countries. We don't have at-will employment, but it is relatively easy, certainly for the first 2 years, to take on employees and then take some time to work out if they're the right people, if they're what you want to have in the UK. And if you need to terminate that employment, it doesn't tend to be too onerous in the UK, which isn't always true of other parts of Europe. And the reality is it's always a risk. Setting up in a new country, starting a new company, you're never quite sure what the market's going to be like. So everyone's a little bit nervous about what ties they're taking on, and it's a valid concern. But setting up a UK company, taking on your first employees, doesn't have to be too onerous. Obviously it's worth getting some legal advice and some employment advice, but I think you can rest fairly assured in those first few months that you're not taking on anything that will tie you down for years to come.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for companies. I think that we're so used to at least from the US, so used to it being much easier, and we need to be much more aware that there are really important regulations to follow. Now, from your thoughts on this, what else do companies have to prepare for as far as employment law and having kind of the ducks in a row, if you will?
Really, you need to issue an employment contract. So that needs to be with the employee 8 weeks after they've started. So I know that's very different to the US, for example. So really just making sure you have that in hand. It's always good to have like a legal expert review it and make sure any clauses in there make sense.
And is that before you make an offer, or is that, you mentioned up to 8 weeks after you've hired them, but what about the offer process? Are there really specific things that have to happen in that?
Not too specific, but do be careful that anything that you make in that offer could become part of your legal contract with the employee, so don't make rash promises that you're not able to fulfill. On the other hand, what's particularly popular with tech companies across the world is offering options, stock options.
Yes.
Fantastic way of giving something to your employees without it costing you too much on day one. There's one particularly fantastic tax efficient scheme if you've got UK employees. It's obviously only relevant if you're paying tax in the UK. But really good to take advice in advance, because some of these have to be prepared for, and you have to make sure that the ducks are in a row before you make those offers and before you give people options.
Okay.
So by all means, talk to employees or potential employees about the possibility of options, but don't make too many promises before you're in the right position to do it. And those options would normally be in the parent company. So all of the share ownership is going to come in at the top level.
So you can give options in a foreign company, but there's certain things you have to follow.
Yeah, you can do it to anyone,
Okay.
But you can make it tax efficient for UK employees under certain circumstances,
Okay.
which can be great for both employees and employers. And lots of your potential employees will be quite wise to that. They will have done it before, and they will know that they can reduce their tax bill, their future tax bill, by getting the right system in place. So hopefully that wouldn't be an anathema to them. They'd be ready and willing to wait.
So let's talk about culture really quickly. How different is it doing business here? What are just some fun tips? One of the things we've learned is that when someone says something is interesting, that actually means that it's not interesting. Any other thoughts on, how to really do business well here?
Over a drink.
Great advice, right? That's why we're here.
We're very social, so having a drink, alcoholic or not, is a good way of getting to know customers, employees, hopefully within reason most of the time. But yeah, we're quite social. My US husband was quite shocked by how much involves the pub culture in the UK.
Yes.
Both business, work drinks, celebratory drinks, getting to know people drinks. The pub culture does still exist, though perhaps not quite the same as it was 20 years ago.
Well, I think that's great advice. We have this lovely pub here. It's what is it? Yield White Horse, and it's a fantastic, beautiful old pub. What are some of your favorites?
We have been able to spend 1 or 2 hours here, but there are quite a few. The sort of country pub culture outside London is huge. You can't beat a Sunday roast in front of a fire. but equally lots of the bar scene.
Yeah, especially with the hipsters. There's like various areas where they tend to congregate, with the tech scene as well.
Name some.
Shoreditch.
Okay.
Is also a great area. There's lots of up and coming tech companies around there. I'm a fan of going out around there.
Yeah, we were there this morning filming at Shoreditch.
Okay,
so.
great. Yeah, so that's probably more my thing than the old White Horse, but
And a big student culture, so which is obviously quite social. So we are here, but also in the midst of LSE, but there's plenty of universities, thousands of students here in London, but lots of different locations across the UK. All, well, a tech culture, but a young culture. Lots of fast-moving business, lots of entrepreneurs, lots of people keen to learn and do different things. Lots of good ideas out there.
All right, so we've got we understand how to speak to each other, and we need to do it in a pub. That is where business is done in the UK.
Yep, over a cup of tea or a beer is a very normal tradition here.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
This is Globig. I'm Anka Corbin. We're here in London with Fitz Law, and we're learning about what makes UK a fantastic place to bring your company or to start one up. Thank you.